You've tried affirmations, you've tried thinking positive, but you still feel stuck. If you're an analytical thinker, it's not because you aren't trying hard enough. It's because your intelligence is actually protecting your limiting beliefs. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why smart people struggle the most with breaking free from mental barriers, and more importantly, how to outsmart your own brain. Here's what might sound familiar. You tell yourself you need to gather more information before making a move. You analyze every possible outcome until you've convinced yourself the odds are against you. You create elaborate spreadsheets and pros and cons lists that somehow always lead to the same conclusion. Not yet, not ready, not enough. Sound familiar? The twist that nobody talks about is this. Your brilliant analytical brain is actually your biggest enemy when it comes to personal growth. While everyone else is out there taking messy action, you're building an intellectual fortress around your fears and calling it wisdom. Let's dive into what I call the logic loop and why your intelligence might be sabotaging your success. But first, subscribe to our channel. We need to understand what limiting beliefs actually look like for analytical minds. Most self-help content focuses on surface-level beliefs like "I'm not good enough" or "I don't deserve success." But smart people rarely think in such simplistic terms. Instead, their limiting beliefs are sophisticated, logical-sounding statements that feel completely rational. For example, instead of "I'm not smart enough," an analytical person might think the market is oversaturated, and statistically speaking, the probability of success in this field is less than 3%. Instead of "I'm afraid of failure," they'll say, "I need to conduct more research to minimize risk factors before proceeding." These beliefs feel intelligent, responsible, and completely justified. Here's where cognitive bias comes into play, and this is crucial to understand. Smart people are exceptionally good at something called confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. Your analytical brain doesn't just accept a limiting belief. It becomes a detective, constantly gathering evidence to prove that belief is correct. Think about it this way. If your subconscious mind has decided that starting a business is too risky, your conscious mind will become a master at finding every statistic, every failure story, every economic indicator that supports this position. You'll ignore the success stories, dismiss the encouraging data, and focus laser-sharp attention on anything that validates your hesitation. This creates what I call an evidence echo chamber. Your intelligence, which should be helping you find solutions, instead becomes a sophisticated defense system for keeping you exactly where you are. The smarter you are, the better you become at building logical arguments for your own limitations. Now, let's talk about where these patterns actually originate, because understanding the source is key to breaking free. Most limiting beliefs form during childhood, when our brains are developing and we're trying to make sense of the world. But here's what's fascinating. These early conclusions get stored in your subconscious mind, which operates completely independently from your logical, analytical thinking. Neuroscientists estimate that 95% of your brain activity happens below the level of conscious awareness. This means that no matter how much you analyze, rationalize, or think your way through a problem, you're only accessing 5% of what's actually driving your behavior and decisions. This is why positive thinking and logical analysis often fail. You can't think your way out of a feeling that was never created by thinking in the first place. Your subconscious mind operates on emotion, pattern recognition, and automatic responses that were programmed years before you developed your analytical capabilities. So when your conscious mind says, "I should start that project," but your subconscious holds the belief taking risks leads to criticism and failure, guess which one wins? The subconscious every single time. And then your analytical brain steps in to create seemingly logical reasons why waiting, researching, or preparing more is the smart thing to do. This is why smart people often feel frustrated with themselves. They know what they should do, they understand the logic, they can see the opportunities, but they still feel stuck. It's not a failure of intelligence, it's a mismatch between conscious goals and subconscious programming. But here's the solution that actually works for analytical minds: the evidence swap, specifically using what I call the courtroom method. Instead of trying to override your logical brain, we're going to use its natural tendencies to work in your favor. Your mind craves evidence, so we're going to give it evidence, but from both sides of the argument. Here's how it works. First, write down the limiting belief exactly as it shows up in your mind. Don't sanitize it or make it sound nicer. If your brain is telling you, "I'm not ready to launch this business because the market conditions are unfavorable," write that down word for word. Next, you're going to put on your prosecutor hat. Your job is to build the strongest possible case for this belief. What evidence supports it? What data backs it up? What examples can you find? Be thorough. Be analytical. Be completely honest about every piece of evidence that makes this belief seem true. Most people skip this step because they think it's negative, but this is crucial. You need to honor your brain's concerns and take them seriously. If you try to dismiss or ignore the evidence your mind has collected, it will just get louder and more insistent. Then, and this is where the magic happens, you switch roles and become the defense attorney. Your job now is to build an equally strong case against this belief. What evidence contradicts it? What examples exist of people succeeding despite similar circumstances? What factors might your prosecutor mind have overlooked or minimized? The key is to approach this with the same analytical rigor you used for the prosecution. Don't rely on hope or motivation. Find concrete examples, research studies, statistical data, and real-world evidence that challenges your limiting belief. This method works because it speaks your brain's language. Instead of asking you to ignore logic, it asks you to apply logic more completely. Instead of dismissing your concerns, it treats them as one side of a complex equation that deserves thorough analysis. What you'll often discover is that your limiting beliefs aren't as rock-solid as they seemed. When you force yourself to examine the counter-evidence with the same intensity you've been examining the supporting evidence, the whole belief structure starts to shift. Your analytical mind can finally see that staying stuck isn't the most logical choice after all. If you recognized yourself in any of this and realized you might have some of these mental blocks, I want you to check out my video on neurodivergent traits that reveal hidden genius. You might discover that your brain is wired differently in ways that actually give you incredible advantages, once you understand how to work with your natural patterns instead of against you.